Greetings and welcome. My name is Terry Roberts Leonard, and I have the honor to serve as the district's Equity and Inclusion Officer. I'm so thankful that you have chosen to spend part of your day with us as we continue our Courageous Conversations series. The Courageous Conversations series aims to inspire dialogue, community engagement, and civic education. Speakers will include scholars, community leaders, and diversity professionals whose scholarship, leadership, and advocacy enhance the school system's efforts to present diverse viewpoints, ideas, and perspectives to inspire greater understanding and appreciation for inclusive excellence. I am honored to be here today engaging in this important topic of Hindu cultural awareness. We were able to have an in-person session doing the same thing this summer, and it went really well, and we all really learned a lot from it, and we believe that today will be no different. It's important that we learn about all of our student populations in order to help all of our students feel welcome and included in our school system. If you have any questions during the event, please feel free to utilize the Q&A feature here on Zoom, and the presenters will answer as many as they can within our allotted time frame. Our event today is scheduled to conclude at 1:15 p.m. Thank you again, and now I will turn the event over to our guests.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hindu Cultural Awareness webinar. Thank you, Terry, for the introduction. It was great. Okay, let's move on to our next slide. So, namaste. This is a Hindu greeting, which means I bow to the divinity within you. So, my name is Madhuri Meda. I'm a Carmel resident for the past 22 years. I have two kids who are born and brought up here. They both attended Carmel Clay Schools, and they both graduated from Carmel High School. My older one is a sophomore at IU Bloomington, and the younger one is a freshman at UC Berkeley. So I have two co-presenters here. Now I will turn it over to Sushmita Singh to introduce herself.
Namaste and a very good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for taking the time from your precious day and attending this webinar. Hopefully it is educational and informative to all of you. My name is Sushmita Singh. I'm one of the presenters, as Madhuri has just mentioned. I'm also a parent of Carmel Place Schools. I have two children, Isha, who's 15 and she's in high school, and Rajiv, who's 13 and in 8th grade, middle school. I've been a resident of Carmel since 2008, and I'm excited to give this presentation. Over to you, JRG.
Okay. Namaste, everyone. My name is J.R. Sundari. I've been a long-term resident of Indianapolis/Carmel. Carmel being a home away from home for the last 22 years. So I am a full-time volunteer of Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh, as well as HEF, two local organizations here. In addition to that, I give my time locally to a lot of interfaith activity, primarily on the religious literacy within the Carmel Interfaith Alliance, as well as Center for Interfaith Cooperation, Indiana Mountain Interfaith Network, and so on and so forth. So looking forward to this conversation. So back to, I'll be the kind of a moderator. So I'll be looking at all the Q&As and see how best we can address those Q&A. So feel free to please stop, raise, all those features can be used within the Zoom, and then we can go on with the presentation. So back to Madhuri. Yeah.
Thank you, JRG. So as JRG mentioned, we are all volunteers of Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh, also known as HSS. And we are also volunteers of Hindu Education Foundation, also known as HEF. So what is HSS? HSS is a voluntary, nonprofit, social and cultural organization based in the USA. So the main aim is to practice, preserve, and advance Hindu culture and values, and to serve the community we live in. So this organization was established 25 years back in USA with 250 chapters across 33 states. So here in Indiana, we have 6 chapters. HES is a project of HSS, and this focuses on sharing the Hindu values and culture with the mainstream, especially with educators and first responders for educational purpose. Next slide, please. So today's webinar includes Hinduism fun facts, core beliefs, symbols, festivals, stereotypes, misconceptions. So at the end of this webinar, we would like to hear from you through Q&A form. So please feel free to put in the chat window your questions, and JR will moderate, and will take as many questions as we can. So moving on to the next slide. So my next slide will have 2 questions on Hinduism. Just take 2 minutes to put in your answers. Let's see. Okay. Did we see one answer? No?
Are you
I
able to
think you
see,
are on mute, JR.
are you able to see answers, Madhur? I can see them.
Oh, you can see them? Sorry,
Yes.
I cannot see them. If you can.
Sorry, yeah, we can see them. Yeah, took me a minute to find out the chat. Okay, fine. Yeah, it said
Took me a
no
minute.
and no. The answer is no.
Oh, okay. No and no. Okay. I guess good answers. So yeah, that's the correct answer. Not all Indians are Hindus. So India is a home for 4 dharmic faiths. They are Hinduism, Jainism, Sikhism, and Buddhism. There are other faiths which came and found refuge in India, and they flourished there. For example, Jews, Baha'i, Islam, and for the matter of fact, Christianity as well, to name a few. So India is a pluralistic society which harmoniously coexists with all other faiths. So the answer to the second one as well is no. Not all Hindus are Indian. So next slide, please. So Hinduism is a global religion, and it is spread across the globe. That may be due to many reasons. Maybe they have gone all over the world for trade, or it could be religious regions, or there is another reason which could be during colonial time, Britishers, they took indentured workers to Caribbean islands like Trinidad, Jamaica, Fiji, etc. So now Hindus are thriving there in those countries. Hinduism or Hindu Dharma is the 3rd largest religion and is generally considered as the oldest religion in the world. So there are about 1 billion Hindus around the world. They represent about 15% of the global population. So while Hindus may be prospering in many Western countries, but they are also significantly minorities in many countries like Indonesia, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, to name a few. So these, they are like significant minorities, and they face religious persecution there. So how about USA? Let's see their, percentage in USA. So there are about 3.2 million Hindus living in the USA, which constitutes to 1.3% of the whole of USA. So despite being a micro minority, Hindu immigrants, they have excelled in every field, you name it, like science, technology, engineering, medicine, business, and many other fields. So they have started businesses, created jobs, joined armed forces to defend our nation, and they are also into our national aeronautic space. For example, Kalpana Chawla, she is the first Indian women American who is a part of NASA and who contributed her services. So today, Hindu Americans, they are CEOs of some of the biggest corporations of the US. For example, Google, Microsoft, Twitter, FedEx. VMware, Barclays, Chanel, Adobe, IBM, Micron Technologies, and the list goes on and on. So let's see the percentage of population in Carmel area. So in Carmel, they are 1%, which means about 1,000 families. They are Hindus in Carmel. So next slide, please. Okay, so as you can see this picture, this is a picture of a mandir, also known as temple. So mandirs play a significant role in Hindu society. They are considered to be potent locations of invoked divinity. So a mandir may have a murti or a deity or several murtis or deities. So these are all physical figures, but they are embodiments of divine qualities. Hindus worship, they consider worship to be so important that they have built temples wherever they have gone. So you will see temples all over, all across the world, wherever they are. So it's a place for them to celebrate festivals, and it is this environment is conducive for human development and also to elevate their spirituality. So temples, they help in practicing and preserving 7,000-year-old traditions. These were also places for arts and dance forms where these were encouraged and developed there. So in North America, there are about 850 temples serving 3.2 million Hindus. So as you can see in this picture, they are well renowned for their intricacies, and sometimes, you know, their architecture is awesome. So here in Indiana, we have a temple called Hindu Temple of Central Indiana. If you haven't visited, feel free to visit, and the architecture there is beautiful. Next slide, please. So now we'll look into our core beliefs. Let's see, Hinduism overview. So unlike the Abrahamic religions, Hinduism is different because there is no one founder for Hindu civilization. It has evolved over thousands of years. So from the archaeological evidences and excavations, we see that these dates back to several years, and we do see terracotta dolls which are in the posing namaste, and we do see those dolls also have a vermilion which is found on their forehead. So they date back to thousands of years. Similarly, there are many texts or scriptures. There is no one book which is a prescribed book, but there are many of them, and they are all wealth of information. Not all texts are religious texts. There are many texts which are into, they are ancient texts which talk about, or they have information related to philosophy, administration, astronomy, mathematics, ethics, science, and many more. So whatever you name it, you will find texts in Hindu civilization, which dates back to those. And these are evolving, and we keep adding this information to these scriptures, to these libraries. So even till today, we refer to those scriptures, and we use those principles, and we use that knowledge even in today's day-to-day life. Next slide, please. So yeah, based on that, from that you can see that Hindus have contributed to, Hindu civilization has contributed to many aspects. As you can see here, maybe yoga and meditation, that might be familiar to some of you. You might have attended some classes, but it is very familiar in Western world. Yoga, there are misconceptions, right? You go join yoga and you think, oh yeah, I'll get fit, but it is not just that aspect of it. Yoga means it is a union of body, mind, and spirituality. So, and looking at this slide, mathematics, the concept of zero and infinity They are proposed by Indian scientists. If you want to watch this movie, The Man Who Knew Infinity, that's a good example of mathematician who proposed the idea of infinity. And there is another picture which is under surgery. That picture depicts a cataract surgery which was being done by a famous surgeon, Sushruta, who is considered the father of surgery. So he invented surgical instruments, and the design of those are even being used to this day. And Ayurveda is a holistic medicine which is still practiced in India. Next slide. So Hindus not only contributed to those, you can see that they made significant accomplishments in business, trade, and social aspects of the civilization. You can see diamond mining, cotton, they are into sugar, and not just that, you can see the recreational aspects like chess, ludo, snakes and ladders, also called as mokshapatam, and kabaddi. This is another game. So even till today, these games are being played and everybody enjoys these games. These all come from Hindu civilization. So this slide talks about dharma and karma. So what is dharma? Hindu dharma believes that we are all entities of the same creation, whether it be humans, animals, plants, mountains, anything. We believe that they are all from the same entity. Therefore, our actions, they affect the entire creation in some way or the other. So there are consequences to what we do. Therefore, dharma is that one underlying law that governs the creation of its entirety and sustains it. Dharma is that which sustains. Karma means any action or deed which is performed mentally, physically, or verbally. So every action has a consequence, right? So if you do good deeds, you accumulate good karma. Likewise, if you do bad deeds, you accumulate bad karma. So you cannot escape from them. Whatever you are experiencing now is a consequence of your past actions. Similarly, your present actions will result in your future destiny. So if you don't experience in this birth, they get accumulated and you will experience in your next birth. So there is this concept of this concept of birth and death, and the cycle goes on. This is cyclical in nature. The typical idea of there is only one life, it is different from Hindu culture. We believe in the cycle of birth and rebirth and death. So breaking from that liberation, that all depends on your deeds and the accumulation of positive deeds versus the negative deeds. That's all it is. So we can move on to the next slide.
Can I take it over, Madhuriji?
Yeah, thank you, Sushmita.
All right. So just like how Madhuriji has just said, your past actions determine your future destiny. So I'm sure most of you are wondering, what have you done in the past that today, in this lovely afternoon, you have to spend with us listening to this webinar? So sorry about that. But anyway, I am not qualified, quite frankly. I'm going to just put this disclaimer out that I am also dabbling to grasp the depth and dimension of Hindu teachings. So I'm not a qualified spiritual guru to be presenting this great knowledge. So I'm going to try my best, make an humble attempt at it. What this slide says is that it is defining 4 methods to attain that one singular goal for which all of Hindu teachings, all of Hindu philosophies and spiritual paths are devoted to. So the central chord of all Hindu teachings is attainment of liberation. Now, liberation from what, you might ask? And there are 2 kinds of liberation that have been identified in Hindu teachings. One is liberation from ignorance, and the other from the cycle of birth and rebirth. Ignorance Ignorance is bonding and knowledge is liberating, is what our teachings say. The pursuit of knowledge of this ultimate truth, the ultimate truth, which is identified as Brahman in our religion, has three characteristics. It is described as Sat Chit Anand, which simply translates to existence, consciousness, bliss. Existence means that it has existed before anything else came into being, and it will continue to exist even after everything is gone. So its permanence is a mark of its existence. Consciousness, that which dwells in the collective consciousness of entire creation. And we believe that we all exist in that one collective consciousness. Bliss. Bliss is that state of mind where there are no emotions, absolutely no emotions to rattle it, to cause euphoria, to cause sadness. None of this, none of those antonyms of emotions exist. And that state of mind, that perfect calm is called bliss. And this ultimate truth, Brahman, dwells in bliss. So this is the simplified, very oversimplified explanation of the central core of Hindu teachings. Now, how do we attain that goal? There are 4 paths listed here. And I'm going to retract a little bit by explaining the word yoga. Yoga is derived from the root word yuj in Sanskrit. Yuj simply means to unite. And this is what I was trying to explain here, is to unite our being with that ultimate divine, and that is liberation. And yoga is the method to achieve that union. So yoga is the method and yuj is the goal. Okay? And there are 4 methods identified. And very simply put, the pictures are pretty much very self-explanatory. Karma yoga, karma simply means the path of selfless action. There is a volunteer here of one of our sister organizations, Seva International, and the word Seva simply means selfless service. And the organization is the namesake of that word. And selfless action, let's just think about it a little bit, how difficult that is. I mean, we might be able to perform an act of selfless service towards others once in a while without the desire of any remuneration, reward, recognition. Yes, maybe we can do that once in a while. But imagine there are some souls in this world who have dedicated every penny of their material benefits, every second of their living existence towards the service of other people, and yet they have no desire of recognition. That kind of ultimate selfless action warrants the candidate for liberation. Okay, maybe I'm not that person, but what are the other choices that I have? That's not a problem. There is the Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga simply is a path of devotion. Some people are have a great spiritual bent of mind. Maybe it's important for them to refine that skill, work on it, so that they can unite with that divine through spiritual practices. Maybe I'm not a very spiritual person. I just don't believe in that path. Then there is Raja Yoga, which is a very popular form of yoga. If you might remember, all your yoga practices or the yogasanas are a derivation of this philosophical teaching called Raja Yoga. There was a rishi called Patanjali, and rishi simply loosely translates to modern day thinker, philosopher, scientist. It's sort of like a concoction of all these 3 people would be called a rishi. And his name was Patanjali, who developed yogasanas based on this philosophical teaching. And yoga is not simply, as Madhuriji just pointed out, stretching and breathing. It is a complex system scientifically outlined of many different aspects. I'm going to name just a few. One of them, the first one, is asana, you may all know. It is designed to bring harmony to body and mind through mindful physical postures. You've either practiced it or at least watched somebody else do it. The other is pranayama, which means regulating body energy cycles through controlled breathing. That too, some of you might have practiced. But there are a few others like pratihara, which means overcoming indulgence through restraint over one's senses. Dhyana, maintaining uninterrupted concentration on a subject of contemplation. How difficult is that? So that kind of, these are the different kinds of aspects of yoga that come together that put you on the path of Raja Yoga to liberation. And the last path is Jnana Yoga. Say all these practices are not your cup of tea, but you have an extreme intellectual bent of mind, then you can probably have an aptitude for this path of yoga. And some good examples of practitioners of such yoga would be philosophers who have presented great knowledge through experience for the betterment of not just humanity, but the entire existence. Such practitioners are called Jnana Yogis, and they are candidates for liberation. Next. This slide is a very good pictorial depiction of what I've just mentioned. What it simply puts is that Hinduism acknowledges all these various practitioners of all these various paths to be true and ideal candidates for achieving that ultimate goal, which is either union with Brahman or liberation or God realization. They're all three one and the same, and all paths are true. So there's not necessary that one must belong to a certain faith or not, as long as you are practicing one of these three paths. Being part of your own faith also can lead you to liberation, because they all paths are true and validated and can lead to that ultimate goal. That is the general acceptance of Hindu Dharma. Back to you, Madhurji.
Thank you, Sushmita-ji. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we'll look into festivals and symbols. So next slide. So as you can see, there are many colorful festivals here. Hindu society has many festivals, small and big, but there are few of them which are celebrated across the nation with different names. So all of them celebrate with different names, and they almost have the same, they have slightly different process, but the main goal is they celebrate these festivals with different names. Sorry. So they are based on Hindu calendar. Some are based on seasons. Some have some historical significance, and so on and so forth. The purpose behind any of these festivals is different, and there is a festival for every reason and for every season. So let's look at a handful of festivals. First one, if you look at that, that's called Holi. Holi is usually celebrated in early April. Since these festivals are based on lunar calendars, they don't fall on the same day every year, but they are slightly different dates, maybe a week or 2 weeks apart. So this festival sometimes comes in March, April. So this is, they celebrate the arrival of springtime. People celebrate by playing with colors and sharing sweets and happiness. Next one, we can look at Raksha Bandhan. As you can see, Raksha Bandhan is a thread which is being tied. A sister is tying a thread to the brother. But basically what Raksha Bandhan is, it's a celebration of human relationship and community. So people tie a Rakhi or a thread around the wrist of people they love, and they invoke love and protection from them. So this festival, it cultivates a sense of collective responsibility. This festival, yeah. So we celebrate here in Indiana. After a few years, this has been celebrated. This has been celebrated between brothers and sisters, where a sister ties a Rakhi to the brother, and then the brother takes a vow to protect her. We do that celebration here. We tie Rakhi or that sacred thread to city council members, police officers, and fire protectors, because fire officers, firemen, because they protect us from any of these calamities or and the next festival we'll look into is Navratri or Dashera. Here, that's the leftmost. Navratri is celebrated in October-November timeframe. This year we have celebrated and we just concluded it a week back or so. This festival symbolizes victory of good over evil. And Navratri means Nava means 9, Ratri means nights. So we celebrate 9 nights or 9 days. We worship the feminine form of divine. So on these 9 days, we worship 9 manifestations of divinity in the feminine form. I think Hinduism is one of the few religions where feminine form of divinity is worshipped. For example, on the 5th night, we worship goddess of knowledge or Saraswati. And Diwali is another festival. I'm sure most of you know about it. It is celebrated 20 days after Navratri festival. This festival is also called as Festival of Lights. We celebrate by lighting numerous little lamps and sharing fun moments and sweets with our friends and family. This year, Diwali happens to be on the 24th of this month. So please feel free to join the celebrations at our Hindu festival, which is called Hindu Temple of Central Indiana in Indianapolis. Next slide, please. Okay, so during this joyous time, we want to give back to the society we live in. Seva means selfless service, like Sushmita ji mentioned. Seva Diwali, this is an initiative by dharmic communities, individuals, and organizations who believe in selfless service. So this project aims to give back to the society through local food drives. This is celebrated worldwide every year. In the year 2021, we have collected and donated close to 600,000 pounds of non-perishable food to 240 food pantries across US. Locally in Indiana, we have donated about 10,000 pounds to 3 local beneficiaries. So during COVID times, we also helped in vaccination drives. In addition to this, we also volunteer with Bright Lane Learning, formerly called as School on Wheels. This is an organization focused on ending homelessness through education. Slide, please. We'll look into some of these symbols. There are many symbols in Hinduism, but a few of them we can look at it. These symbols are used in our daily lives to remind us about spiritual journey, and they help us stay true to our principles, which include universal brotherhood and acceptance of diversity. So Namaste, first one is Namaste. This is a way to greet, it's a Hindu way to greet each other and as well as non-Hindus. Om, I'm sure most of you have heard or seen this symbol. This is a vibration or a sound which is believed to be the sound which existence comes into being, with which the existence comes into being. By chanting Om, we are able to tune into the divine. And then we have this Bhagavad Dwaj, which is the color, the saffron color, that signifies personal sacrifice for the prosperity of others. Rakhi, or the tying the sacred thread, is nothing but the celebration of Raksha Bandhan or universal oneness, which we just talked about. And then the next one is Bindi and Tilak. You might have seen this where people wearing tilak or bindi on the forehead, maybe your neighbors or your friends' kids or things like that. So this reminds us about the value of knowledge that resides in each of us, and it motivates us to pursue that knowledge in the purest form. And the last one is swastika, which I want to touch upon. This is a Hindu symbol of, this is for peace, fortune, and prosperity. It is considered extremely sacred and holy in many traditions, including Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and remains, it's very widely used since ancient times to till date. It's been used for more than 10,000 years, not just in Hindu culture, but it was also used in ancient Troy and by Native Americans in North America. Zoroastrians also use a similar symbol for religious regions. So this symbol is engraved on sacred objects of worship. So it also, it takes prominence in many religious ceremonies like, weddings, any new ventures you take up, or a house, new homes, and all these ceremonies, this symbol is being used and it is very sacred to us. So, but the word swastika in Sanskrit, it relates to that which makes all well. A distorted version of this sacred symbol was misappropriated by Nazi Germany and abused as an emblem, under which heinous crimes were perpetrated against humanity, particularly the Jewish people. So recently, there was an effort by Hindu organizations across the country to correct the misappropriation of our sacred symbol. Next slide, please. I think it's all. I'll pass it on to Sushmita ji from here.
Thank you, Madhurji. So yeah, I think so far the conversation has been more of what does Hindu Dharma stand for, what is its history, what are its civilizational contributions and such. But what does all that translate to in the modern day current situation of Hindu American students studying in K through 12 schools? After all, we are all here representing them as parents. So let's take a look at one most glaring example, most glaring common misconception, and it is about the caste system. Can I have the next slide, please? So I would like to bring your attention to this image that I took of the AP World History textbook, page 24, and you're all welcome to visit that page. They're just being referenced here. Here, very carefully chosen words and even carefully chosen formatting has been used to portray the fact that Hinduism and caste system are two sides of the same coin. I would like to read out the part that pricks the most. So there is some description about the Hinduism and then goes to caste system. And then it is concluded by saying, caste status was inherited and supported by traditional Hinduism. I had to bring this up because both my children attend Carmel Clay schools, and we have had many discussions over dinner on this topic. Well, fortunately, fortunately for me, they're very well grounded in their faith and have great pride in it. And therefore, they were able to, with the support of their teachers, they were able to overcome the stigma that could have been inflicted upon them had they not known better. So let me just debunk this truth where Hinduism and caste system is often portrayed as synonymous, two sides of the same coin. If Hinduism is mentioned, then it is very necessary that caste system should be mentioned in the same breath. Let me just bring one thing to your attention, that there is nothing inherently Hindu about caste system. What do I mean about that? Caste system is a social norm and Hinduism is a faith. Caste system is a social norm very much prevalent in all of South Asia. And you may well know that Hinduism is not the only religion of South Asia. There are larger religions like Islam and Christianity and Sikhism prevalent in that region of the world. And yes, Muslims have a caste system, Christians have it, and so do Sikhs. So there is nothing inherently Hindu about caste system. What is Hinduism's stance on this? Let me quote the Rig Veda, which is the most ancient scripture of Hinduism. No one is superior, none is inferior. All are brothers marching forward to prosperity. quoted straight from the scripture. And this same thread of thinking is passed on to every single scripture of Hindu Dharma. There is not a single Hindu scripture that acknowledges, sanctions any discrimination against anybody. And if you were to just think about it, you might know some notable personalities like Julia Roberts. And if you don't know, I'm a big fan of that actress. And there's a new movie coming out, Julia Roberts. She has adopted Hindu Dharma. There's a very noted author called David Frowley. They have transformed their lives by adopting Hindu Dharma. But certainly they did not feel any need to take up any particular caste, which means that they are not the same thing. Hinduism and caste system are not the same thing. Next slide, please. So where did the trouble arise? Well, there has to be some source of trouble. There's never smoke without fire, right? There is a system called Varna system in Hindu philosophy. Varna, very simplified, if I were to give a very oversimplified translation of Varna, it means color. Could be described as a color of your personality. So what does that mean? Giving analogies from English language, some people, they fall in love and they say, and the expression goes that you see pink when you're in love. It does not mean that the lovers are turning pink, are they? Or you're envious and turning green with envy. It doesn't mean that the person who's envious is turning green all over. It is simply an expression of your inner feelings, inner emotions, which is somehow given a visual reference in the form of a color. And Varna is exactly that. It is an expression of your inner personality. Personality is also a very complex definition. It is a conglomeration of your skills, your aptitude, your knowledge, your upbringing, the influences during your upbringing. They all come together to shape your personality. And that is Varna. Okay? And Dr. Carl Jung, who was a very noted psychologist, you might probably know the name Sigmund Freud a little bit more popularly than Carl Jung, but they were both collaborators on a large number of theories on psychology. He acknowledged the Varna system as something that is necessary for a very evolved society. So he did give its due importance to the Varna system. And many of us might have been administered this test called the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator Grid. This one was developed by Isabel Briggs and Catherine and her mother, Catherine Briggs. They were both responsible, and they referenced a lot of Hindu philosophical teachings while developing this test system. And what it does is that it sort of identifies what is your personality type and matches you with a certain kind of skill set so that you can become much more successful in developing that kind of skill set versus something else. So it kind of is like a matchmaking system between your personality and a particular skill. And who does not want to be successful? We all want to be individually successful, as well as we want to contribute to make our success towards the community, to make the entire community successful. That's the whole idea behind the Varna system. So I hope it is a very complex definition, but I hope with this modern day example, I kind of shone light on a little bit on what the Varna system was attempting to accomplish in Hindu philosophy. Next slide. So then what is caste system? It is a complicated definition, and hence it is grossly misunderstood. Misunderstood to a certain degree that it has become one of the most persistent, false, and negative stereotypes about Indians, and particularly Hindus. But if I were to give you a very simplified or oversimplified explanation of caste, at least attempt at it, it is nothing quite different from what many other communities would attribute themselves to. Say, for example, caste system has the characteristics of clan, class, lineage, language and dialect, traditional occupations. And these are the characteristics of a caste system. And don't they all have aren't there many other communities around the world that have a very much similar kind of characteristics too? So how can it be exclusively Indian or exclusively Hindu and no other community can have it? It's just not possible. But narratives have been built on this kind of idea to portray and isolate Hindus that only they associate with or identify with caste system and nobody else does. There are 9,000 books to date written on caste system and as many theories published about it. The media is obsessed with this. And many of the authors are Indians who are either living in India or from India. So yes, it could be a social norm in India, but it's being falsely projected onto the non-Indian Hindu American population here, which is so wrong. And why is this wrong? Why is this problem being magnified to such an improportionate levels? Just like Madhurji has just mentioned, Hindu Americans are only 1.3% of the American population. That is a minuscule micro minority. And a survey done to identify with a questionnaire has collected data stating that only 5% of this 1.3% of Hindu Americans even have some kind of association or identity with caste system. How tiny is that percentage? And how big is this problem projected to be? This fault of allowing the problem to be magnified largely also rests with us Hindu Americans, because we too have internalized this problem and stereotype, and we kind of go with the flow. But we must realize that such projections, such media portrayals, and such false narratives are out there to kind of like demonize Hindus and Indians. Next slide, please. So I kind of took some excerpts from the AP World History textbook, and not just the text, as I'm going to point out, but also the font. I mean, just imagine this sentence here starts with caps lock, all caps lock, the Indian caste system is perhaps the most extreme expression of a type of social organization that violates the most revered principles on which modern Western societies are based. Most extreme. Such superlatives have been utilized. And yes, this kind of text, this is page 24 and 25 of the textbook. And this text kind of rambles on, describing that there is some kind of similarity between this kind of caste system and other classical civilization. However, if you were to look at the second image, the Indian caste structure was the most rigid. So the authors kind of go to an extreme degree to kind of draw some parallels, but however, they round up saying that Indian caste system is still the worst. This is, I mean, this kind of language and this kind of description is a very grandiose rhetoric that kind of like alludes to quite gross double standards on part of the authors. Next slide. So what does this kind of teachings in classrooms have, and what kind of a negative impact does it have on Hindu students? There was 2 surveys done so far, and one of them was reported in the New York Times, where dozens of students told committee members that they were taunted after learning about caste in school. And of course, you know, numbers kind of stick better with us. So here is another survey that was done where Hindu students responding to their survey reported that an intense focus on caste in classroom made them vulnerable at 2.6 times more vulnerable to bullying than any other student. That's a big thing. That's bullying based on their faith and their, you know, maybe their national origin. That's something we want to fight against, right? These are the first-hand experiences of students who have complained about taunting, bullying, and worst yet, disowning their faith. As a mother of 2 Hindu American students, that is my worst fear. Next slide. So what are we as Hindu Americans doing to address this issue? We have taken a stance. a stance that states that caste-based discrimination is wrong and needs to end. We also want to project to everybody here that caste is not sanctioned in any Hindu scripture. At this point of time, I would like to recite a Sanskrit prayer that is recited by my children on a daily basis. It goes, Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukha bhat bhaved, om shanti shanti shanti. On a daily basis, my children recite this. And I'm sure many other Hindu American students do too. What this translates to is, may all be happy, may all be healthy, may all see what is favorable, and may no one suffer. And I don't see any form of discrimination in this Sanskrit prayer. Hindu American Foundation, Hindu Educational Foundation, along with many Hindu Americans, is at the helm of revising K through 12 history textbooks to reflect this, to correct this wrong. At the same time, what are the so-called activists who are bringing to attention this big problem of caste system is they are not allowing us to, they are not acknowledging our stance on this matter, on this topic. We are not trying to wash off our responsibility to end the caste-based discrimination. In fact, we are committing ourselves to fight this inequality. On the contrary, the activist groups, particularly I would like to name here Equality Labs, they are trying to delegitimize our stance on ending this narrative as well as caste-based discrimination. What can you do to help us? Ask questions. Learn, educate yourself from trusted resources. Allow us to find those trusted resources for you, and then ask lived experiences of Hindu Americans as to what they feel. And teachers can teach such a delicate matter with some sensitivity. And on that topic, I would like to particularly thank that when I questioned my children as to how this matter was taught to them by their teachers at Carmel Clay Schools, they had excellent appreciation for the teachers, that they taught it with sensitivity, and some of them even went above and beyond to research this matter on their own and bring out the truth before they talked on this topic. So I would like to thank them for that. With this, I hope you've been following the 3 words that I've mentioned throughout my topic on caste system. First, attempts of activist organizations to demonize Hindus, delegitimize our stance in fighting against this wrong, and then trying to glorify their stance and just projecting those double standards. These 3 Ds, and the world has seen the effect of these 3 Ds once in history, and it has gone to the nth degree of decimating a race. So let's just prevent that from happening one another time in the future. With that, I would like to stop here and invite questions.
Thank you, Sushmita and Madhuri. So now we have approximately around 15 minutes. So if any of the attendees have any questions for the panelists, please go ahead and post it on the chat, and then we would like to take those. If not, Terry, are you there?
I am.
Okay, just making sure. Let's see. Do you want me to stop the sharing?
Yes. All right, while we wait on individuals to type questions in the chat, I have a question myself. So what would you say is probably the biggest thing that someone who is not a part of your community, what do you think can be like one of the things they can do to be helpful and supportive? I know you gave that 1% number, and so that is a small number. So what can other people do to help students feel more included? Anybody can answer. It wasn't for one in particular person.
I'll take a shot at it, and then JR and Madhuri can add perhaps. First and foremost, I would like to acknowledge that Carmel Clay Schools has, in many ways, attempted to bring the Hindu culture to the forefront in the sense that acknowledge, like I can give a few practical examples as to teachers attending Guru Vandana, which is Teacher Appreciation Day, where students present what their heritage is about. Second is acknowledging Hindu festivals, major festivals on Carmel Clay calendars, and just bringing us here in this panel and having this difficult conversation with you all and putting yourselves in that position to sort of like acknowledge that, yes, there could be some problems here. So that itself is, we appreciate that there are many measures already in place to make us feel included. Above that, perhaps some continued education, if there are any questions that need to be asked, if there is any confusion, if there is no clarity on a topic, then perhaps before teaching it and causing any kind of stigma or misinformation being passed on, those questions can be clarified by us, or we can deflect it to someone who has more expertise on those topics.
Thank you. And I have another question. What are some of the best ways that people can go about educating themselves? Like, are there certain like podcasts or books, or I know people learn in all different ways, but what are some ways that you suggest that people can learn more on their own?
Yeah, because I mean, as a faith itself is such a large body of work and such a different philosophical approach to how it can be read. But what we can do is we can share a list of readings, Terry, and if you want, that can be propagated to all the people. We have actually compiled that for various libraries, certain core writings by various famous philosophers, so on and so forth. That way you get more educated on that front, on the book side of it. And the same thing can be done on the audio side of it too. So we have certain speakers of, like Sushmita mentioned, right? Some of the revered gurus who have actually done a deep dive contemplation into some of these very complex topics. And they try to break that down into a very simpler way so that laymen like me can understand. So those kind of videos can be shared. Again, we have created a resource toolkit for people to know. We can share that resource toolkit with it.
Okay.
That includes websites, newspaper, books, as well as audio links. Yeah.
Thank you. Do you see anything in the Q&A? I'm trying to click and I'm not being.
Not yet.
Okay.
Q&A. Let's see.
I don't see anything. For some reason, my chat thing is not pulling up.
I think Valerie just posted, thank you so much for this presentation. There were so many topics, branches that seem as though they could be explored in depth in future. For sure, Valerie. Yes, yeah. We would like to come back and conduct, if there's of an interest, definitely do a kind of a deep dive into one of those topics. Again, this is the effort we are trying to make across civic bodies as well as different educators. This effort is ongoing, not only in Carmel, but across the country, just to bring more awareness and more education about our own culture and our own philosophy to the broader community.
There's one in the Q&A. Okay. There's one in the Q&A that says, I see this being taken up more intently at the high school level. How do we get our elementary schools to do better? Anyone have any ideas about how to incorporate this into the elementary level?
We can make it as a fun, interactive experience at the elementary level, because at a high school level, it tends to be the kids are more. So we could make it, some of these sessions could be more interactive for the teachers. So that way, when they see an elementary kid, they understand what background they're coming from and so on and so forth. So We have done these kind of workshops in a more interactive fashion too, unless Sushmita wants to add something else.
All right, I do not see any more in the Q&A, so I'm going to ask for a last call. If anyone has any questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A box. Or here's another one. I'm doing a Diwali event in my kids' class, but it's only because I initiated it. I don't see it being school-led. So I guess they would be asking some suggestions on building-wide types of things that they could do. It doesn't
Yeah.
say if it's like middle or elementary.
Yeah, again, we have a wonderful toolkit which talks about how do we celebrate Diwali in schools, what are the ways to get engaged at the community level, and how do we go about doing that. I mean, those resource toolkits can be shared widely with the, if you like, Terry, I mean, we have a nice toolkit. I mean, if you want, you can share that with the broader teachers across the school district.
Mm-hmm.
With the Diwali coming up on 24th, if any of the teachers would like to take that as an idea, that would be good too. So that's an easy.
And for any of you who are not already a part of my Canvas page, join my Canvas page, and there is a whole section with resources and stuff like that. I can add anything that JR sends me to that part of the Canvas page. So there are resources on that Canvas page for any CCS employee. All right, well, we appreciate you all joining us this afternoon, taking time out of your day to share this information. I know even though I did it in the summer and we got to see those cool displays and things like that, I still caught some other things that I did not catch then. It's just a lot of information. So I do appreciate it. Do you all have anything that you want to say as we close?
Just want to thank you.
Yes.
Yep, thank you for giving us this opportunity.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming in and helping us out. Thank you everyone for signing up to come to today's event. We do have events every month. So just please check the sign in Google form and you will see what we have coming up. And have a great afternoon.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.